Just one sec. Okay, we're live now. Sorry.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay, there it is. Okay. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of January 10th to order. And we are honored to gather on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. And I have a statement that I would like to read before we start moving to the agenda. We would like to wish everyone a happy new year. This past month has been very interesting with all the weather we have had to deal with. I would like to thank Public Works for the snow removal job they have been doing, working long hours to keep our roads open for the public. But mixed into that was the minus temperatures that created many water breaks in the village that they also had to deal with. We also know that we have more work to do. Thanks to everyone that cleared their sidewalks and helped other residents clear theirs. It made it safer for everyone. COVID is still here and looks like it will be for some time yet. Please follow the regulations, be safe and aware of your surroundings. We are back to Zoom meetings to keep village staff and council members healthy. We made changes to our strategic priorities this past year by adding a focus of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples and the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Initiatives to address housing affordability and availability, protection and enhancement of natural environment, opportunities to address climate change, mitigation, and adaptation, the Child Care Space Creation Project, Arts, Culture, and Recreation Master Plan, and the Bevan Industrial Area Development. Although we have added these priorities in more detail, we always know that throughout the year we will receive more requests for initiatives brought by members of council and residents. These are always decisions that council must deal with. We would like to thank all the residents that have volunteered in many areas of the community. You are what makes Cumberland work well. Thank you. Now we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. It's going to take a little bit of time here to get back into the Zoom meeting. Minutes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. No delegations, no unfinished business. Correspondence. That council received the correspondence from the Comox Valley Regional District regarding Comox Strathcona Waste Management District bylaw adjudication.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. You have before you a letter from the regional district asking us to review this proposal and go back to them with any recommendations. So is there any questions or comments from anybody concerning this?
I have a question. I'm just, how does this affect the village's adjudication? You know, couldn't really pick that out. What changes for us?
I assume that would Clayton, that you could answer that question.
Well, maybe I'll let corporate officer answer that. I think she has some background on this here.
Okay, thank you.
I think the question was, how does it affect the village's communication? I don't think at this point, because this is a regional service, it wouldn't directly affect the village. And the recommendation before you is just to support the initiative. I think it's a good shift. Many local governments across the province are moving to this adjudication system with the bylaw offense notice. It's a similar system to our current ticketing system, but it just has a local, it relieves some of the disputes from the regular court system. And there's definitely some advantages to it. And it's something that we've been looking at for the village's ticketing system for the past little while. And it is on our list to bring it forward to council for the village's bylaw enforcement itself. But this one is just the regional or the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board looking for feedback going to the system themselves.
Thanks for that clarity. Thanks.
Yeah, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I was just wondering about, and I don't know off the top of my head whether the regional district is using restorative justice, but how restorative justice referrals might intersect with this new process, or do we know that yet?
I think under the village's current bylaw enforcement policy, it is in our policy to use restorative justice. Well, we have a willing parties. I can inquire with the regional district and the Strathcona Waste Management if they use that as well. I think if you look, the fences here, I think they're in the bylaw on page 26, which was it looks like trespass and dumping items on the property or a couple of the offenses. I'm sure we'd have to ask the regional if they have that in their policy to see how they administer it.
Okay, and we can look at it again when we do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, because I thank you, Councillor Sullivan, for bringing that up, because I was concerned about that also. Not so much concerned, but pleased to see, because on page 34, it talks about the fines that can be levied against. And my what it says within the boundaries of the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service Area. So I assumed that was within the village of Cumberland, that they could fine people for removing municipal solid waste from designated facility, trespass, and depositing items contrary. So I took it that we would be allowed to do that under their umbrella, or would be under their umbrella.
I had noticed some of the language too, kind of incorporating the municipalities that I didn't really know where that was happening.
Yeah, so could we get, I agree with what they want to do, I absolutely do, but we need some clarification on where that puts us with their bylaw, because they are talking about us in the report in the bylaw.
Yeah, we can do that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll move the motion then. I'll move the council, or do we need more information before we support this? Is that what
No, I think we can support it at this time, yes.
Yeah. I'll move the council support the implementation of the bylaw adjudication system for Comox Strathcona Waste Management bylaw enforcement.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, we have reports that council received the development permit and development variance permit 2779 Alverston Avenue report.
The receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nice to see you all on Zoom again. Feels like we're in a time loop. So this report has come before you once already and then gone to the APC. Is now back before you. So this report is for a development permit and development variance permit for 2779 Alverston Avenue. And the village received an application for a residential infill development permit and a variance to convert an existing accessory building into an accessory dwelling unit. The application and supporting documents meet all of the development permit area guidelines with the exception of the required rear and side setbacks, which were addressed in the variance application. At the Advisory Planning Commission on December 9th, the Advisory Planning Commission recommended approval for the development permit and development variance permit to council. So staff recommend approval of the development variance permit to reduce the rear and side setbacks for conversion of the existing accessory building to an ADU and to reduce the rear and side setbacks for an existing shed on the property. And that council approve development permit for the conversion of the accessory building into an accessory dwelling unit.
Questions from members of council? No questions, then we will ask for a motion.
I'll move that council approve the development variance permit 2021-19 DV to reduce the rear and side setbacks for conversion of an existing accessory building to an accessory dwelling unit, and to reduce the rear and side setbacks for an existing shed on the property described as Lot 5 DL 24 Plan VIP 6793 to 779 Ulverston Avenue, and that council approve the development permit for conversion of an accessory dwelling building to an accessory dwelling unit on the property described as Lot 5 DL 24 Plan VIP 6793 to 779 Ulverston Avenue.
Seconder,
Second.
all in favor? Carried. Next, that council received the report development permit 2607 Maryport Avenue. River Seat,
Second.
all in favor? Carried.
All right, so this report has come, or application has come before you previously as well. So the village received an application for a residential infill permit for property owner to convert an existing accessory building into an accessory dwelling unit. So the the application and supporting documents comply with all zoning bylaw requirements, except for the fact that it extends into the front yard. But in May 2021, council approved a development variance permit on the subject property to allow for the existing structure to extend into the front yard by 3.1 feet. So this was referred to the Advisory Planning Commission December 9th as well. And after reviewing the application, they recommended approval of the development permit. So staff also recommend approval of the development permit for the conversion of an existing accessory building into an accessory dwelling unit.
Any questions from members of council? Councillor Brown?
There's a couple of things in the stormwater management report, and it might have been in the other one as well, but they talk about the stormwater management as a 1 in 5 year storm event. Is that what we require, is 1 in 5 years?
Oh, sorry. I'm just bringing it up on my tiny screen here. Our ADU, our development permit application, doesn't actually set a specific time frame for the stormwater management reports. And so I think it's generally just standard, depending on, I know sometimes it's usually, well, it can be 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Or I have also seen the 1 in 5. I mean, it is something.
Yeah. So I guess I just wanted to make the point that maybe that's something we should be looking at, because 1 in 5 years seems ridiculously inefficient and not enough, since we're having regular 100-year events sort of regularly. So just for a note for the future. But the other question I have is they talk about permeable pavers, which is awesome, but it's not, doesn't specifically say that they are going to use the pavers. It says if they use pavers, it will be blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't say whether they are. So I'm hoping that they are, and we have an example of this moving forward, because then we could encourage everybody else to use permeable pavers as well. Wow, it's hard to say.
Yeah, that is definitely, it's one of the recommended surface treatments for parking in the DP. And that's something that can be checked at development, at the, landscape inspection, because that is one of the requirements. So we can definitely check that and just ensure that they said they are going to, that they actually are, because I do an on-site inspection, so.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any further? No, said someone like to make the motion?
Move the council approve. Move the council approve development permit 2021-07 DP for conversion of an existing accessory dwelling building to an accessory dwelling unit on the property described as Lot A, Block 35 DL 24, Plan VIP 3268, 2607 Maryport Avenue.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, that council received the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee liaison with business community report.
River seat.
All in favor? Carried.
is Rachel going to speak to this?
Yes,
Or-
yes, she's on the report.
My mic on, thank you. I can give a brief introduction, and Councillor Brown is the lead council liaison. She may have some additions. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement on a strategy to encourage and support business owners in making businesses more accessible. And this was, that was one of the initial tasks assigned to the Accessibility Committee when it was first came to be. I think that was back in 2015 or 2016. And it was part of their first project, and a brochure was developed back in 2017. But one of the issues is that I think the chamber had folded, and there was no vehicle to actually get that information to the business community. And now that the Cumberland Business Association is up and running, and it's an opportunity to communicate the information in that brochure with the association. And because the community or the committee is an advisory committee to council, council really does need to endorse that liaison between the committee and the business association before the committee moves forward. So we're looking for that endorsement here.
Okay. Any questions from members of the members? Councillor Sullivan, I saw your light go out. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's really nice to see this coming back. The awesome job that Sam Brad did with all the input. Yeah, I'm just really happy to see this coming back and getting into the community. So I fully support it.
Okay, Councillor Kettler, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering what sort of accessibility standards we have already built into some of our processes, like the business license, for example, when the inspector or fire chief goes in to do checks around safety and stuff like that. Is there any thought given to accessibility for businesses at that time?
That could be another tool that we could use to share this brochure with businesses, definitely. It's a bit challenging with existing structures and buildings because if a business isn't doing any alterations, there's no requirement to make any updates to the structure. But if there are structural alterations, a business permit is required, and any changes would have to meet the BC Building Code, which was updated, I believe, last year for accessibility. So that would be administered through the building code and a building permit change. But other than that, it's just awareness and a request to businesses. And maybe Kaylin can ask if that's a tool that we get that brochure through the business license process. I'm sure it's something we could do.
Yes, Rachel, whenever we get new business licenses as well, they're emailed a little information packages, and that's a good opportunity to present that letter to new businesses especially. And of course, all this information will be at the fingertips of the business association as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. I was just going to mention in the past that the fire chief has just mentioned that it's tough because a lot of the business owners aren't the owners of the building. So there's kind of been a bit of a rub there. So it's just something we've talked about before.
Okay, Councillor Brown, it's your turn. I wasn't missing you out here. You're an active member of the committee and our liaison person. Do you think this is something that they're going to like to take on at this time? Or do you think COVID is really hard on them at this time?
Yeah,
With the
so
regulations.
I think we have had one of the board members attend an accessibility meeting. So we've started to build that relationship. And I think this just allows us to continue to collaborate with them and continue to build that relationship. And when they're ready, we can take the letter to them and find ways of getting it out to their membership. And yeah, so we just wanted to get the letter through council and get your support for that first.
Well, I think it's a really good initiative to get going. And I think it's like many others, you start out small and you gain the momentum during the process. So what is council's pleasure?
I'll move it. That council approved the strategy to endorse and support business owners to make businesses more accessible by endorsing the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee liaising with the Cumberland Business Association.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, that council received the staff report dated December 20th, 2021 regarding the Bevan Industrial Lands Implementation Plan.
Move receipt.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Carried.
Good evening, council. So I'm just going to start this this report out just due to the fact that this was a real cross-departmental project that we've been working on, which included our ops and engineering department, planning, economic development, finance, parks and rec, as we review the 6-lot subdivision that was recently, council's aware, was recently approved out on the Bevan lands out there. And what I wanted to present here, what we presented or are bringing to council for consideration, or sorry, I'm just flipping to the right page. There we go. We as a organization wanted to have a look at exactly what the next steps look like for, we have the concept plan in place. We have an existing subdivision that is underway. And it, due to the fact that there is more land out there that potentially will be coming forward as a possible subdivision or development, it was really important that as from a staff perspective, we really understood what the next steps look like. And so some of the things we got together as a group and discussed what the short and long-term actions are, as well as changes to any village bylaws. And also linkages to existing village projects. And so within the report, we talk a little bit about the fact that we have a existing transportation master plan that we are working towards commencing. Right now, we're just working on the RFP for that. And that obviously would include the Bevan area there and different type of transportation that will be required out there or recommendations for that. We also, council's aware that we're in the, probably about halfway through our DCC project, which I think later this month, we should have something back to council in the end of January there in relation to the next steps for the DCC, which previously hadn't included the Bevan area. And now those are aspects that will be included into the updated DCC program there. So there's a number of existing projects that are underway that directly are connected to the work and the future works that would likely be in this area. So what we want to do today was, and staff is here to certainly answer any questions, and I'll ask them. There's a couple of pieces I would like them just to provide council a little bit of information on. But basically, we want to provide what the roadmap looks like, and this will just help from a staff's perspective and hopefully council understand what the next steps look like. And one of the key areas that we're looking at is doing a study for the servicing of that area. We don't have a current servicing study for the Bevan area. And so that's something that is part of the list of actual items. So I think in this next year, what the priority areas would be the transportation master plan, the DCC review, an update, and also the servicing study. And so what I want to just ask before if there's any questions is I was just going to get Kaylin just to touch base on the connection between the economic development plan or strategy and where we are today. So I'll just get him just to provide a little bit of a context on that. And then I'll ask Courtney just to talk a little bit about the servicing study that we are recommending be complete, and then certainly open to any questions there. So I'll pass over to our Economic Development Officer.
Thanks, Clayton. Hello, council. Happy New Year. This, I guess you can look at, as Clayton's kind of suggests, is the next iteration coming out of our Bevan conceptual planning process. Where that concept plan come up, we went through that process to identify certain values we wanted to see within that development, things that were important to the village in order for us to maintain our community identity and values while encouraging development and business growth in that area. So when we came out of the concept plan, the next questions were, how do we make this a reality? How do we apply what we want and how do we get there? And so that's what Clayton's talking about, is those planning tools that this identifies as us needing. From an economic development concept or concern or interest, we're thinking about, I always put myself in the shoes of a developer, and what is the information they need to know that's going to make them comfortable in seeing a real opportunity out in the Bevan lands. And so this sort of preliminary servicing plan, of course, when that servicing comes in, that's going to be a development cost project that developers will undertake. But we need to provide some information from our end about those routes and those costs, our standards for how we want things built. And so this preliminary servicing plan is going to give us those pieces. So when we're asked by a future developer for further plans about what it's going to look like for them, we have those pieces in place to ask them. So not only is this an important piece to preserve and ensure we maintain those values on the landscape that we like out there, but it also allows us to show developers that we're in a place to accept development and we have the tools in place to make it happen for them. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but I know Courtney has a lot more to offer on what those planning tools specifically look like.
Great, thank you. Kaylin, I'll just pick up where Kaylin left off there. And just to add a little bit more information to the servicing study, we recommend undertaking. We're trying to strike the right balance here between being well prepared and having a clear idea of what the village is looking for in terms of new servicing to this area, yet continuing with the typical requirement that development pay for itself, and that when these new development applications come in, it is up to the developer to prepare the detailed plans for the servicing. So in particular, we want to have a more clear idea from the village of the cost recovery tools for new infrastructure. So that's things like local service area, latecomer agreement, development works agreement. So just as an example, right now, we want to be in a better position to have a clear idea of what the village's preference is for the way we, the structure for recovering these costs. It's a bit of a technical element, but this study will allow us to get some consulting help to weigh the costs and benefits of these different tools. And then when the next development proposal comes around, it's a win-win for both the village and the developers, where we can articulate our clear preference and they can work with that. It should be more streamlined and more clear, and things should move more smoothly and more quickly. And that's just one example of a handful of items the servicing study includes: better understanding of the watershed boundaries in that area as well, and review of the information all in one place that we already have about the servicing capacity in the village and our future needs, and then a more clear understanding of what we still don't know and what we need to find out through development about how to service these lands. I think I'll turn it back to Clayton.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney and Kaylin. So we're happy to answer any questions, and we also our manager of operations, Rob, he's available as well if there's any technical questions. But happy to answer any questions relating to the report or recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, so thank you for this. This is great to see it moving forward. A quick question and then a more complicated question. You refer to SEI lands. What does that mean in the report?
I believe that's stage, or is that the stagecoach? Or
there's SEI lands, and it's a reference that came out of the Bevan Conceptual Master Plan, and it identifies areas of ecological importance. And so there's certain areas that we did through that planning process that we identified, a lot of them up against the water boundary buffers. And other areas that we know are identified as potentially wildlife corridors. But there's areas that we know that may not be suitable for that type of development. So it's been recommended through this plan that we look at other ways of utilizing or conserving that land.
Awesome, thank you. And my other question is about, when we first were looking at the initial subdivision, we were thinking it was going to be a well water and septic. And so now we're running water. Do we have any, will this servicing agreement figure out how much water we can, is there a limit on how much water we can send out there? Is that a concern at all for the development of these lands, I guess is my question.
Mhm.
And as well as the waste water, and it'll start with septic and then we'll build in a service for moving the wastewater into our system. Yes, or that's still to be decided.
Courtney, you had your hand up?
Thanks. Yeah, that the servicing study will help us have a better handle on both of those questions. In general terms, we don't imagine continuing to develop multiple septic fields in that area. So we have, and we expressed that with the current developer there, that at some point soon, we will need to have a wastewater collection system out there.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sullivan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I went out there actually just in the middle of December, and I was pretty impressed with what's gone on out there. It looks ready to go. Yeah, just when we were having that original meeting, we talked about the multi-use trail and stuff like that, and just there's no pictures really with the report, but I'm hoping that the connectivity and stuff that we've talked about is still available with already what's happening and what's gone in already.
Yes,
Yeah.
that feature remains intact as proposed in the development plan. And the servicing plan, it's a parallel to what we're talking about with servicing as well. We can show that developers and they see our expectation because we've drawn a trail on a map. And so some of the servicing and other pieces that we need through these plans are going to help us be able to do that same thing with different pieces of infrastructure for them to provide them sort of road down the road of what it looks like.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and just to build on that is, that's also part of both our active transportation project that is currently underway, and also the transportation master plan. So there's a number of initiatives related to, how people are moving, into that area and out of that area, both vehicle wise, pedestrian wise, bicycle wise. So there's a bunch of things that will come out of that. And our Parks and Recreation manager was also part of this when we were working on this and providing feedback and input related to some of the outcomes we need to help answer those questions there.
Yes, Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, I'm just really happy to see this come forward. The development out there has been a long time coming, and I think we had to sort of make an exception with the septic field at first because it was a bit of a chicken and the egg situation. We need businesses out there and developers to even have a reason to put in that infrastructure. So it's good that we're at this point. We have water servicing out there. We're working toward having sewer out there. And I think, the more we have a clear view of our vision for the Bevan industrial lands, the better it will be for us, but also for developers, so they know what the expectations are. So yes, I'm very supportive of the implementation plan, of the DCC review, development cost charges, and the servicing study. So thank you for all that work.
Yes, Rob.
Just one additional note for council to be aware of the actual, and I think Councillor Brown referred to this, the treatment of that additional sewer will be looked at through stage 3 of the LWMP. So when we complete that final report before we submit it to the ministry, we'll have to look at a number of areas in Cumberland, including Bevan Road, Cumberland Road. So some of the businesses out there that aren't serviced right now. And, we'll also look at Comox Lake Road. It's not feasible to service those lots, but we'll include it within the report, and probably it'll contain some recommendations. So just so you're aware that the treatment capabilities will be assessed through that report for Bevan Road.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed reading the report. It gave us a very thorough report with 11 different categories, and each one has an action and bullet form of what you plan to do during that process. Number one is the servicing strategy, and you've highlighted that this is our next step. But is there anything else that we would be looking at to do this year in that report?
The main objectives for 2022 is the servicing study, transportation master plan, which is for the entire village, but also this specific area, as well as one of the items that's listed in there is the DCC project update. Again, does cover off the entire village. However, there is some new aspects related to the Bevan area. So there's quite a bit of work as part of that. So that report will be coming back to council. But because of this there's some new updates since the last DCC update, that's included in this. So that's a priority that has been identified for this year, and that will help us as staff be able to support any future proposals or applications. We'll be able to bring council that information, and we'll have the right pieces in place. There is definitely some long-term items, but right now those are the 3 priorities for 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll include those in as part of, I think that, well, obviously the transportation, the DCC are part of our existing quarterly update. So if council does support the servicing study, we'll include that as part of our quarterly update as well. So that next council meeting will include that in as our strategic priority updates for council.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So no further questions. What is your pleasure, council? Or did you have something else you wanted to?
Yeah, just if it's possible,
I got the new motion.
Yeah, I would like to propose that the funding for the servicing strategy be added as, I guess it'd be number 4 within the recommendations. Still number 3, the recommendation number 3 directs staff to bring back items and actions that are not currently funded. There are a number that still are not funded, so we still would recommend that be part of the resolution, but then add that council approve the expenditure of up to $25,000 to be funded through the infrastructure asset renewal reserve for the Bevan industrial servicing strategy. So I think you have a copy of that available for you, and then if for consideration there.
Okay, would somebody like to make the motion there?
I'll move that council approve the Bevan Industrial Lands Implementation Plan dated November 2021. The council directs staff to bring back actions within the implementation plan that are not included within current work plans and that may require further funding. And that council approve the expenditure of up to $25,000 to be funded through the infrastructure asset renewal reserve for the Bevan Industrial Servicing Strategy, water supply and sanitary sewer, and that council directs staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted 2022-2026 financial plan bylaw to reflect this expenditure.
Second, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, staff. Very well done. Good report. Next, that council received the COVID-19 Restart Grant in Aid Program report.
Receipt.
Second, all in favor? Carried.
Hello again. As promised in last November, when we gave you the last COVID restart funding report, we identified that some of these community requests could be suitable to put under a restart grant and aid program. And as you directed, and we're coming back now with establishing the guidelines for what that type of grant and aid program would look like. And then asking your direction to start implementing that program so we can begin to receive applications on behalf of community organizations. If you've looked at the guidelines, they look very familiar to our community grant and aid program, and that's intentional, making sure the reporting things are very familiar to our organization so we don't spend a lot of time trying to learn a new way of doing things. The only real big difference you'll notice is just in the scope is we've kind of opened it up for organizations to seek operational funding, which those of us that know that often are dependent on grant funding, this is the type of funding that's really, really difficult for organizations to get. Again, it's steered towards community non-for-profits and organizations that provide essential benefits to our community. So with that in mind, I'm happy to answer any questions or encouraging council to allow us to start to implement this program.
Councillor Kettler, do you have any questions?
No, it looks good. I don't, as you said, I don't see much change to our regular grant and aid program as far as requirements, and that's good. I think that we have a good program in that. So yeah, I'm happy to move this. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I just have a question about so we've allowed operating funding, but it does say seed operating funding. So that's doesn't necessarily, maybe just clarify what you mean by seed.
That might, sorry, Councillor Brown, that might have been a typo. It's for operating. And when we have this community grant and aid and restart grant and aid, if there's any confusion in there, it's going to be one or the other.
Okay.
And so, if I don't think the seed like if they're looking for truly seed money, I'll direct them to the community grant and aid program because that is eligible within there. This one is mostly for, and I didn't want to take away operational to mean that they couldn't use if they're an organization that provides events as community benefits, be the markets or anything that addresses those types of things. I wanted them to be able to still private, if their operation is events, then I wanted that to be considered operational as well. So I'm sorry for that confusion, but I'm certain that between the two programs, either or is going to fit within what we have to offer.
Awesome, thank you.
Councillor Sullivan.
No, fully support. Looks great.
Okay, Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, I was just going to say within that definition, it does say or service that is currently being impacted by COVID-19. So I took that as a currently operating service as well.
Okay, someone like to move it?
The council approves the COVID-19 Restart Grant and Aid Program guidelines and directs staff to implement the program.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, that council received the 2023-2026 council remuneration bylaw review report.
Move receive.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Right. So before you just have a report in relation to the existing council remuneration bylaw and some recommended areas for consideration for council to consider. Currently, the remuneration bylaw does the way it's drafted does or in place there has it completes a term as of the end of 2022 and 2023. It reverts back to the CPI increases that were previously done. So there is, you'll see it's within the attachment there, the existing bylaw. So what the review that's occurred here is a review just in relation to the actual wages. There's no review relating to any council benefits. That there was a review back in I think 2018, but that wasn't something that was part of this this particular process. It was just in relation to the wages. There was a sample group that on page 108. You'll see there's a listing of the sample group both for similar sized municipalities in BC as well as regional comparisons there. So what has been put before council is a number of considerations. One of the areas of considerations is that seem to be in reviewing most bylaws is that most existing bylaws now have a balance of a percentage where the council was paid a percentage of the mayor's remuneration. And so, and the reason why that's the case is like in our existing case as the increase of, let's say right now it's 4%, 4% of 10,000 and 4% of 20,000, they over time will have a greater gap where if it's 50%, 60%, 55%, that gap is maintained. And so that is seems to be the common commonly outlined within most bylaws as a percentage. And so that's what's presented here as an option. And then secondly, some language relating to what is included is a review of remuneration prior to each election cycle. And so that currently is not in the existing bylaw. So what would happen here is if council wish, we could include that into an updated bylaw that says the year of the actual election period would be a period of time where this remuneration would be reviewed. And there's a couple of ways of doing it, and I presented a couple of examples of that, either through a committee, through council. There's a couple of ways that other municipalities are doing that. So basically, what has been put forward for council is some options to consider relating to the mayor and council remuneration, and then a couple of options relating to some additions to or updates to the existing bylaw. I do want to note that all of these changes are recommended that they would be effect for 2023, and because that's the date that well, first off, it would have to be budgeted for, and any changes related to that, so they're part of the financial planning process for 2023. And secondly, that would be the time where the bylaw would be updated. I think that is it, and happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Clayton. Yeah, I'm happy to see this report. Yeah, I've thought a lot about this over the years. Personally, I like option number 4. I was going to suggest $3,000 for the councillors and $5,000 for the mayor immediately, or not immediately, but as a start, and then bump up into the CPI, which sort of number 4 almost reaches that for me. I do agree with putting this into a bylaw so that it's reviewed, but the year of the election, I like that too. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I like number 4. I was going to suggest just a flat raise of 3,000 for a councillor and 5 for a mayor, and then set the CPI past that. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Thank you so much for all your work on this. I had never really looked at how much we get compared to other similar sized communities. I just, looked at the local other areas and thought, oh, well, they're so much bigger than we are. That's why, they make so much more than us. But in actual fact, we're making less than a lot of other people of similar size. And if we do want to recruit capable and competent council members who are who reflect the diversity of our community, I think we need to offer compensation that at least approaches some sort of minimum standard. So I appreciate all this. I also like the idea of council remuneration being linked to as a percentage of the mayor's, so that skew doesn't happen. Yeah. So, and I also like the idea of setting just a regular review that happens, every election cycle, I guess.
Did you have any preference onto how you would like to establish that? Because there's options here.
Yeah, I didn't realize we needed to pick an option. So, yeah, give me a second. I'll think.
I'll come back to you then. Okay, Councillor Kettler.
Thank you. I had a little trouble with my mute button. Yeah, so this is the last year of the term, and so this is the year to do this, to review remuneration and bring us up to comparable level to similar communities. I think that would be nice. I think, you know, to be fair, we still don't get paid anywhere close to the amount of work that we do for council, but it's nice to at least be, you know, in the same, at the same level as our cohorts around the province. So yeah, I'm into giving us an increase. Well, it would be for future council. And I do think the level should be at what Councillor Sullivan said, number 4. So currently we're at 11,000, bring us up to the 14,500. But I also do agree that that it would be good to have a percentage of the mayor's remuneration, so that that gap doesn't occur, like staff were saying. But I haven't worked out the percentage exactly, but maybe staff can do that based on number 4, what percentage that would be of the mayor's wage. And yeah, I think it's a good idea to review this in the final year of the term, and possibly with a committee, because that is what some other jurisdictions do. So it'd be nice to consider that as well. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Brown, we're back to you.
Yeah, so I like the, and I don't know how, still let staff figure out how we exactly do this, but I like the effect number 2. So effective January 2023, set councillors' remuneration at 60% of the mayor's remuneration. And then number 4 as well, setting us to the average of the comparison group, like my fellow councillors also supported. And then and then going back to the CPI after that in the interim. Yeah.
Yes. Councillor Sullivan, you put your hand up. You're on mute.
There we go. Okay. Welcome back to that. Yeah, just looking at my math machine here, 60% of the mayor's wage for 2022 is only 13,900. So if we could like bring that up to the median and then start it from there, kind of thing. Is that what you're talking about, Councillor Brown? I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
And Councillor Kettler maybe too. That works for me.
Okay. Thank you. I agree with all of you. I think it's a good idea to do it in the last year for the next council for 2023. I also agree with the committee being formed. I've heard of that, people doing that, and it seems to work well. As far as the remuneration, I've always believed that the mayor's wage and then the councillors is half that, if not a little bit more. Because if you do it just on percentage, you fall back all the time, and that's what has happened in the past. And that needs to change. And that just happened not that many years ago. Up until then, it was always 50% of the mayor's wage. And people were a lot happier then with it. Okay, so we need somebody to put a motion forward that says what we just said, all said. To take one at a time.
So just for clarity,
pardon?
Sorry, just for clarity. So what I'd heard so under the mayor's remuneration, it was number 1, and
yes.
Under the council remuneration, it's number 2 and 4. Is that correct? What I heard, and then I think what I heard was under the on page 108, the second bullet, which was the general following in the year of the general election, that a committee would be formed.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And thank you very much for the work you did on comparing us, because we're getting more in line with other municipalities and what they are getting paid for the amount of work that we as mayor and council do, we should be paid up equal to what they're getting. And we've been told that we operate like a city. And I think sometimes we are. Tonight is one of the shorter agendas that we have to deal with, but we also deal with many complex situations and proposals. And that takes a lot of staff and council time to, and homework on weekends when we're working on reports and reading the agenda as well. And it's really difficult in the summer when everybody else is out playing, but that's part of the job and we accept that. So do you need that in an emotion, Clayton, or you've got direction? You're on mute.
I would suggest, if possible, if council would provide a motion for those 3 or 4, I guess. That would be
Okay.
appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan?
So if we were to start with number 4, would then the mayor's salary bump up to the 60% of whatever, or 40% more of $14,000? Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
If council wishes, you could do that. Yeah, that's, so what you're saying is number 4, and then the mayor's salary would be 60. Yeah. If you want to,
But yeah, bump that up to that. So that 14,005 is the 60% of the new mayor's remuneration.
yeah, and you will we will bring this back it'll be in the bylaw there. So, but maybe if you could make that within the resolution there, we can make that work.
Your worship, does that sound good?
Yes, as long as you're giving a wage increase and then it's a percentage of that. Yes, you're not leaving them at the rate now. You're going to bump it up.
No, I don't see a number 4 for the mayor.
No, it's in number
Great.
1. It's
Yeah.
at number 1.
But we can work it back from number 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if we take those two numbers, the 25,000 for the mayor and then the 14,500 for councillors, that's 57%, which is what Comox does their split in Parksville. So does that make sense?
Yes. I think that's a good way of looking at it.
So 57%.
Yes. Is that okay, Clayton? 57?
Or we can just bump it up to 60.
Yeah, whatever council wishes, in a sense of either we can utilize the councillor at that 14,596 and the mayor would be at 60%.
Yeah,
that. Yeah, that can be done, or at 57 would be the 25,584, which is within the report there. So whatever council wishes, either the 57% or the 60%.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan, are you making that motion?
I don't know if we've settled on a number. Is that everybody with the 57?
Well, the 57% works with the numbers that are
Sounds good.
in front of us right now. So,
but we could also set the motion so that we use number 4, and instead of saying then number 2, we just say number 4 sets the council's remuneration, and that the mayor gets 40% more than that. And then we're at the 60-40 rate that we all talked about when we first started talking about it. Shall I try to do the motion?
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
the mayor said 50%, right, of councillors. So that's
What it used to be.
that's
That
what
was
it,
old, that was
yeah.
old time. That was
Yeah.
the old days.
I
Yeah,
think hoping we do a bit more work than that. So
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just looking at the comparators, if we did the 57, then we would be the same as the other jurisdictions in our area.
yeah, I just don't want to see it falling back again. I want it up and comparable to the other communities.
yeah, I think the comparable communities are more logical comparisons than the other areas are just radically different population
Mhm.
numbers. Okay, so I will try and put something together here. So effective January 2023, increase the councillor's remuneration to the average of the comparison group in 2021, which is 14,596 annually, and set the mayor's remuneration at 40% above this rate, plus include the British Columbia Consumer Price Index percentage increase for 2021 and 2022. And in February of each general election, an independent committee will be formed to review council remuneration. The committee will be comprised of 3 village residents, and any recommended increase in remuneration will become effective January 1st of the following year. Is that enough?
Well done. Second.
Very well done, members of council. All in favor? Okay, carried. Okay, thank you very much. Next, that council receive the Regional Solid Waste Collection RFP Memorandum of Understanding Report.
Receipt.
All in favor? Carried. Good evening, Rob.
Oh, good evening, everyone. It's like COVID Groundhog Day is what I call it.
It's good to have a sense of humor. We need that.
Groundhog Day with the snow, and it's Groundhog Day with COVID, that's for sure. Staff have a report tonight requesting participation in a regional RFP, request for proposal with the city of Courtenay and the town of Comox. We've been working on this for a while, having discussions on looking at perhaps a regional approach to leverage some stronger pricing and look at a cart system. So a new collection trucks and a cart system for solid waste collection in the village. And so it's been some city of Courtenay's kind of leading the RFP process. They have a procurement department and people who are experts in this. And what they're asking is the town of Comox and the village of Cumberland sign a memorandum of understanding, not committing to signing any contracts, but to the process, to start this process, start down the road. Clayton and I had a discussion with some of the staff last week at the city of Courtenay, and we still have the opportunity to maybe look at a different approach if we don't want to proceed with the request for proposal and any kind of a contract. But for now, really what we're asking is to spend a few $1,000s and commit to the memorandum of understanding to start down this path. So I'd be happy to answer any questions pertaining to the report.
Councillor Sullivan, you got your hand up.
Thanks, Rob. Just a couple questions about the different sizes. And is that each residence's option?
That's the thinking, right? So if you're a 2-person family, you could opt for a smaller cart, probably pay a smaller quarterly fee or whatever, however we set the fee system up. If you got a large family, yeah, you could have a larger cart.
And then kind of a follow-up second, I wasn't really sure with this RFID stuff. Does that include the weight? Am I reading this of each thing? Is that
no? The RFID is really for tracking purposes for the carts, because they sometimes disappear or people steal them. I think the arm on the truck itself has the ability to measure weight, and then they're also looking at the option of maybe having a camera. That way you can monitor for contaminated products or whatever. You've got a video record if anything happens, right?
So at some point it would be maybe possible that someone's weight all year would be measured. Is that too finite, or maybe someday that's what we're looking at? Or
I don't think so. I don't think it'll ever be based on volume. It's really just a mechanism to I guess to monitor what's in the carts. So
great, thanks very much.
Councillor Kettler.
Thanks. Yeah. definitely support the MOU. I think that's it's something that we need to do as a region. But I'm just wondering about the automated collection when we have weather like we've been having lately with huge snow piles. So my parents live in Powell River, and there is an automated system there already. You have to set out the garbage container in a very specific way, location and position for the arm. So just wondering how that would work for us if, we're dealing with these huge snow piles and whatnot. Have you run into that in other municipalities?
Yeah, up north, it's a challenge, and it's one of those situations where people just have to be patient and follow the truck for a minute or two down the road until they can pull over and let people by. It's a challenge when you got snow for any kind of cart system in any community in the province. So yeah, it can be a challenge like on a day to day, but as you widen streets and improve I guess passability on the streets, it's just a challenge. Probably take longer to collect as well, because you've got parked vehicles and piles of snow, but something we'd have to work with any new contractor on for sure.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thanks for this, Rob. I had a similar question around snow. So we don't at this point need to decide whether we want to be semi-automatic or fully automatic, because I think the semi is maybe more flexible when it comes to tiny roads and cars and snow and that sort of thing. Or do we need to make that decision right now?
We don't need to make that decision today, but there's pros and cons to this semi-automated versus automated. And that's probably reflected in costing through the RFP process. So
right, okay. And then I'm definitely in favor of a regional approach, because I think you're right, it'll get us more bids on the contract and potentially better service, although the service has improved greatly in the last since we switched. I am curious about how we work social procurement into this RFP when other areas may not have those policies in place yet.
Yeah.
Make that part of the.
Yeah, what we did this last week when we met with the city of Courtenay and their procurement manager, those are the questions that we've asked for consideration, how that would look. I think that the objective here, the MOU allows us, we're no matter where we are in a regional participation, if it's through an RFP or like Rob was saying, if it's there's some other options that can happen in the sense of a regional approach. Doesn't have to be just an RFP. Sometimes there's groups out there that would do an RFP and we would get the pricing that is associated with it, because we're really a very small component of the actual big picture there. But we did request that to be included in there. And so they've taken that away. We're not sure what that's going to look like and how they can include that in there. But that is something that we've asked for that to be included in there. We've provided them our information. We're just not sure if that would be exactly the same way they would include in the RFP, or it would be some modified thing that we'd have to look at and comment on. But it is something that we've brought forward to them for consideration in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think this report is very timely because of what we've just gone through. So we know what we're going to be looking at in the future as far as snow is. I thank you very much for the report. It was very informative, especially with the employees and how WorkSafe is looking at the amount of lifting that they have to do and how they don't really think that that's advisable. So it is timely that we do something to improve how we're collecting our garbage. So I think that's very good. I certainly do support the memorandum. So would somebody like to make a motion?
I can move it. That council direct staff to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the city of Courtenay, the town of Comox, for the issuance of a joint request for proposal to solicit proposals for a 3-stream curbside collection service for a 5-year contract with a provision for a 5-year extension.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you.
Next, we have bylaws. Someone like to move the bylaw?
I'll move the council adopt 2022-2026 financial plan bylaw number 1152, 2021.
Seconder,
Second.
all in favor? Carried. Next, there's no new business. Notice, motions and announcements, none tonight. And question period, please send your questions by email to info@cumberland.ca using subject line question period. And we will wait to see if anybody asks any questions.
We do have a couple of questions. Until this
Yes.
meeting was taking place. The first one is, I believe this is about the correspondence on the agenda. Why does the village's representative to the regional district not comment on regional district bylaws and the implications to the village?
Well, actually, that came through the Comox Valley, Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service. So Councillor Sullivan is our representative on that board for that service.
Yes, I am. And that's why I was seeking clarification on that report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we have another question. I believe this is about the accessibility report. If a business wanted to make their building more accessible, would they still need to go through the heritage alteration permit?
Is Courtney still here? Would you be able to answer that, Courtney?
Yes, I can. So interior renovations of any sort do not require heritage alteration permit. But there is not currently an exemption for exterior renovations that are for the purpose of improving accessibility. So that's the way the current heritage alteration permit reads, or heritage conservation area reads.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question regarding solid waste. So with the solid waste, there would be no longer unlimited organics and no ability for bundles of branches, is the question.
We have not we haven't dealt with that yet. I think that's something that we will deal with in the next phase, as far as my understanding is. Right now, all we're looking at is a memorandum of understanding to work towards the service. But we were just told tonight that we will be making those types of decisions down the road. Is that right, Clayton?
Yeah, so those are some of the things that will be part of the RFP is the service volumes and other pieces related to that. So there would likely be a request within that about the volume. That's from cart sizes to organic cart sizes and also yard waste pickup. So all those things will be part of that RFP request, and we would be seeking submissions related to different levels of service, allowing us to choose what is appropriate. But certainly the cart system there has been the feedback we've had from communities that have implemented the cart system is it has really positively impacted the volume of diversion away from the solid waste. And so there's a few great recommendations that the communities that have transitioned over have recommended, and that will be part of that RFP and the submissions that we receive.
Thank you very much. Is that everything, Rachel?
There is another question, but it's not relating to anything on the agenda. It's about Coal Valley Estates, so I will forward that one to staff for a response, if that's acceptable, Mayor.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much. So we have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Look forward to our next Zoom meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.